Hi. So, an old client and friend turned me on to the podcast, The Telepathy Tapes. And it is so funny, guys, because I love that Kai Dickens is doing this. And also, it's so weird to me that people don't get it, that this even has to be a thing. So, my daughter Haven, she's now 9. I have said since the second that kid was born, this kid is exactly like me in energy, constitution, and everything about her I cannot explain to you. She looks just like her dad, and everything else is exactly me. And I'm not trying to claim like, oh, this kid's an extension of me. No, I have 4 kids. None of them are like that. And that is like this in an unequivocal, undeniable way. And in the last year, she was diagnosed with autism and ADD. And through that process, I went, because I was like, dude, if this is like, if I've said since the day she was born that she's exactly like me, does that mean that that's what I am? And a lot of my YouTube people would be like, hey, you're autistic. So I went to do a whole psych eval. And the girl says that she thinks that my social deficits, even though she knows that I'm socially naive, which is so funny because I'm hypervigilant about everything and I see dynamics out there, but when it comes in at me, I don't necessarily, I always try to neutralize the dynamics, but if I see dynamics out there, even like people I work with, I can feel the energy of who they're relating to, and I can see the dance of the dynamics, but when I'm a part of the dance, for some reason my energy kind of nullifies myself. You know, it's like that idea, like I can manifest for anybody. And I'm working on the belief, but it's a little bit more complicated for me to manifest for myself because I think that myself really doesn't care about those external manifestations in the way that maybe I even want to be fair. But I found this, I'm listening to this telepathy tapes. I had to do this thing where I looked back at all my YouTube, which was really shocking because weirdly my old self pulled me out of a rut that I didn't even know I was in. I mean, I knew I was in it, but I didn't know that it would be myself that got me out of it, strangely. So I'm watching all of these things about when my son had his heart attack and I heard him say, hey mom, I'm bugging out. And an hour later he comes home. I'm thinking he's just out with his friend because he was having a sleepover that night. He comes home, he's not supposed to come home, and he has a bout of myopericarditis so bad that they told me he might not make it through the night, right? So in that moment, I'll never forget, he was maybe 2 months old, and I had a friend who also had a baby. And I got up from the table. I was like, he's crying. We were all the way outside, way far away. And I said, he's crying. I got to go in. And I went in and he was crying. And she was like, how did you know that? These are things that are just commonplace every day in my life, right? So I have this kid, Haven, who all of my kids, by the way, my oldest son said to me, I didn't come here to be with you. I came here to be with Grammy when we were Indians. And she was my mom. But you weren't my mom, but you were in my tribe. And when I was 19, somebody stabbed me in the back. Well, all of my kids have had experiences like that. Even one time my son was like, Mommy, we gotta go. This kid's falling off the wash truck. I gotta go save him. I drove him around to every single bridge in our area. I mean, he was convinced, he was sobbing. He was almost not even verbal at the time. He was 3 years old. Mommy, the bridge fell off the wash truck. And the only way to mobilize, whether that was a past life memory, a current life, consciousness he was tapping into, whatever it was, the only way to mobilize his physical body to not be traumatized by it was to listen to him and go. I got him in the car, my almost 3-year-old, I don't even think it was 3 at the time, and drove him to all the bridges to show him, even if this is happening somewhere, there's nothing we can do. We don't see it, but if we did, I would help. I promise. I believe you. This is happening in you and through you. So when he started doing that, he used to sing me songs. And I said, where'd you learn that song? He'd say, my angels taught me at night. He had 2 angels that literally taught him songs that I looked up, and they're the fucking lyrics for the songs. And so at the time, when I was a kid, I saw things all the time. I mean, I had feelings and sensations 100% of the time. I lived in a house that was a hospital during the Revolutionary War. We know that it was built in 1728 or before 1728 because the records show it's standing in 1728. And it was owned not only as a hospital during the Revolutionary War, but then by 2 other families. One of them was mine, and it's been in my family for 10 generations. That I never need to go back to that house, by the way, ever. And Haven also feels the same way. It's so interesting. So it's turned a lot of skeptics into believers about the dark side. I hate to say that, but it's true. And when my son was having these experiences of telling me his angels were singing him songs, I was like, I had this epiphany, like, wait, if I would have been tuned into that frequency, I would have seen angels too, but I lived in a portal that was a very different frequency than that. So I found the other day this thing where Haven was maybe 5 years old. I mean, I could show it to you. It's this drawing that she drew, and she said, Mommy, this is how your Grammy died. And it was a woman in a bed crying with an IV and pictures coming out of her head of literally pictures, like memories. And she said all she had at the moment was memories because the people that were with her, they didn't know her, and they were just thinking like, this is a person who's going to die. And she drew the nurses, and that's exactly how my grandmother died, in a hospital bed by herself with 2 nurses that she didn't know. And I'm listening to this telepathy tapes thing, and it's like, ugh. I also wrote in Imperfectly Sane. I have had seizures my whole life. One night, I don't know if it was a dream, I don't know what it was, but I literally, what I remember is not leaving. All what I remember is coming back. All of a sudden, I'm sitting in a room. Telepathically, some guy says to me, it's time for you to go now. There's a bunch of chatter everywhere around me in this room. It's like a yellow, hazy space. I'm like sitting there playing with a toy. And I get up and I go. I follow the instructions. I know what I'm supposed to do. And halfway through this yellowish tunnel where there's other children in the tunnel with me, I hear a loud booming voice that says, you are returning from heaven. And I woke up, I'll never forget that day. My mom kind of poo-pooed. I woke up freaking out. I like ran in there. I was like, ah! But I didn't just experience that voice and that dream. I felt, and this is interesting because I don't know how the soul comes in the body. I felt from my feet all the way to my head. It's like my body, my soul laid down in my body. Like I felt it happen first in my feet and then everything else. And I also experience like night paralysis very often. I have sleep issues. A lot of that's probably an autism thing. Who knows? But by the way, that chick said that she personally won't diagnose me with autism because it's very hard to diagnose an adult, and that's cool. I get it. But also the more I research, it's like, dude, there's no way in hell I'm not autistic, or I at least wasn't. I've had 2 other psychologists say that I think you were this level of autism and now you're this level of autism, whatever that means. But this woman who did the full psychometric test said that she thinks that those symptoms are more ADD and PTSD. Specifically, PTSD was my primary diagnosis, which kind of negates my, like, it's cool that I have that, but on top of that, I was a disabled child and abused for my disabilities, right? So that's a little shitty. I would rather it just be like, oh, well, this is because you have sensory processing. And that's a weird thing because it's like, I definitely have sensory processing disorder. I have synesthesia, but I also have aphantasia. Like, I have so many symptoms of autism that it's undeniable to me at this point. And again, it's like, I just did this video on like, you got to know what you see instead of how people see you. And I think over the last year, what kind of tripped me up when Haven was diagnosed was like, oh, if they don't see this, then it's not real. And it's like, no, dude, what they see is PTSD and what they see is, ADHD. But the thing is like, even when I was diagnosed with PTSD, I was kind of more pissed off because I was like, wait, I thought I hit it better than this. Or I thought I was better than this, right? I thought like I wouldn't be diagnosable, right? Like that was the thought, because I thought I did enough work over the last 20 years to not present as somebody with PTSD. So when Haven did this, I started, and she got diagnosed, and I was like, this kid's just like me. Like, I also just want to see, like, I don't need the validation. I don't want to I hate identity politics. I don't want to wrap my identity around it. I don't need to walk around and be like, I'm an autistic person and I have ADHD. That's not why I want to do it. I am trying to understand my life experience for myself, not so that I can go out and tell you about my life experience. So when my daughter is experiencing this diagnosis, I end up going and doing it for myself. And then I am turned on to this Kai Dickens Telepathy Tapes podcast. So we recently, I think I told you guys about this with a neighbor recently. He complained about the dogs barking. That morning, and call this what you will, this is an everyday occurrence in my life, right? That morning, I hear, let me backtrack. I had a dream that my dog Miles, my puppy, somebody cut off his tail and put it on my front porch. And I woke up from that dream to a text message from our neighbor being like, hey guys, your dog is barking and this happens a lot and can you make it stop? First of all, we live in town. We're surrounded by dogs. This guy doesn't like dogs. And that was the first time the dog has ever barked that early in the morning because he was having a night full of we had to keep letting him out. So I wake up from this dream, have my neighbor bitch he wants to kill my dog, right? Or kill us for having a dog. And then Haven wakes up, and that day, ironically, and this is the thing about the universe, man, it's always we're just trying to catch up to ourselves, I think. That day, I ordered those remote control beeping and vibrating collars for the dogs. And my older dog is crybaby. He's so anxious, it's insane. And the problem with that is Haven empaths with the dog more than the dog empaths with her. And Miles is the little one who's steady. He's like my Sedona was. He's a rock. If you ever feel him, you always feel the same around him. Oakley is it depends on who's around and what's going on for him. His energy changes based on his environment. Miles does not change at all based on his environment. So we put the shock collar on both of them and didn't use the shock at all on either of them. The beep alone stresses out Oakley, not Miles. But Miles is the one who needs to shut up so the neighbors can stop complaining. And by the way, I got these things before the neighbor complained, which really annoyed me because now it's oh, he's gonna think I did it because he's bitching or whatever, and I don't want that to be true, but whatever. I'll surrender to yeah, I did it for you, bro. Anyway, I have a lot of grievances I could say about this situation, so I'm going to hold back there. But Haven woke up the next day. She had a dream that Oakley, who's the older dog, who's always really stressed out, and I know that he's stressed out because of Miles, actually, at this point, which I'm working on. I appreciate your advice, but I think I have it right now. So she has this dream that Oakley was standing next to a lake with her, and I was on my phone, and this isn't typically the dynamic, right? And she said that Oakley looked down and a fish jumped up and electrocuted him. And she looked over at me and was like, Mommy, Oakley's dead. And I was like, yeah, it's okay. Just looking at my phone. Well, what do you guys think was really going on here? My kid is empathing with the dog, who's confused about where this vibration is coming from. So much that he hid under the deck, and I even took it off of him because he was so scared. And when Miles would get vibrated, Oakley would freak out even in the other room. So and here's the irony about this too, because I always say, as an empath, and I think that that's the crux I can see with Oakley, right? As an empath, we can often feel if there is a psychopath, I'm not saying or even a very maybe well-constituted person who never steps out of themselves. It is very easy to feel what other people do not actually feel. But they feel it. They just do not access that they feel it. They might intellectualize it, but they don't actually have the energetic pathways like an empath would to feel on a visceral level what they intellectually feel. So there's Miles, like, running, doing whatever he wants. He'll get vibrated and beeped at all day. Doesn't flinch. But Oakley can be hiding in the other room, and when Miles gets vibrated, Oakley starts shaking. While Miles is outside doing whatever he wants. But Oakley's hiding in the other. So look at the dynamics of those nervous systems. That's a nervous system sensitivity issue, right? So I have this empathic dog who's trying to tell my daughter, or me, or any of us, I'm hurting, and this is confusing, and I don't know where it's coming from. And I don't want him to turn on Miles then, because he's going to kind of like maybe associate it with Miles. So I'm working this out. But my point is, my kid has this dream, and if I was a parent who didn't listen to the unsaid, or really hear my daughter, because she was devastated. She was like, Mommy, this is what's happening. That meant to me, my dog is actually devastated. He's very confused. And he's looking at me, hold the remote, and be like, yeah, it's fine. Yeah, whatever. You're being, vibrated somewhere that is uncomfortable for you. Whatever. Not a big deal. I don't want him to feel like that, right? So the day she had that dream, I took it off. And guess what? 6 hours later, my dog's normal again, right? So the first testimonial I ever got that was not, like, they always ask you to ask for testimonials. I never really do that. But it was the first testimonial in my business that I didn't ask for. She just sent me this testimonial, and it said, Stacy, something about like, and it was my favorite one to date. Stacy has a knack for listening to the unsaid, for hearing the unsaid. So I'm listening to the Kai Dickens thing, and it's like, at first she's talking about how only non-speaking autistics, and it's ironic because I was always put with those people and they loved me, and I didn't understand necessarily why, but it's also because I see them, right? Like I have a knack. I was able to communicate. Like I would get under the table and just look at somebody and be like, okay, this is what's going on. This is what we have to do. And I can help parents figure that out, right? So I was usually the designated person for the autistic people. But I didn't love that because I was such a relational person that I wanted to help people that I felt were more like me understand relationships because they're so confusing, right? But it is confusing to live in a world where that nervous system is giving you a bunch of information and then trying to relate it to people on top of that, right? Like, and that's been my crux in my life, right? I don't want my kids to have to go through like, I don't believe you, I'm gonna gaslight you, you're kind of insane, oh no, that's not real, that's a different dimension, so don't worry about whatever. Like it's present day right here, right? So it's not just non-speaking autistic people that have those capabilities. And I don't know that it's only autistic people either. Who knows? But what I do know is that for me, and even the other night, my youngest son, and this is not something we talk about. I am a very like, even Haven the other day, she's like, it's so weird that everybody comes up to you and says like spiritual stuff to you. But God is talking to me. And I say that to her, like, honey buns, all of those people are just God in form, my love. Like, I like that they do that. She's like, it's so weird. It's so like personal. Like all these people just come up to you and they'll be like, I believe in you and I love you. And like God sees you and God loves you. That's weird. And I'm like, no, that's God. Like, you are a part of that. I am a part of that. I want that because I know that that is God talking to me through that person, right? So she thinks it's a little fruity, but she also is a fruit ball in that way. And she's trying, I guess, to deny it the way that like other people would deny it. But I can't move because I keep losing it and it's getting on my nerves. Oh, that was it. The other day I'm in bed with Sai. And this is what Haven says to me. We're all in bed. And I said, well, why do you I said something. She wanted to do some like Bloody Mary in the mirror. And I was like, no, I don't mess with those energies no more. And I said, and if you do that, why do you go into your room and every time you're alone, you act like you're getting like assaulted vibrationally? Like, why would you want to summon like Bloody Mary if like every time you're alone, you feel like something is in the room that you like are afraid of? And she's like, Mommy, and this was so candid and cool that she says, she's like, I like when I initiate talking. I don't like when things just come at me and try to communicate with me. And that reminded me of this time when, back in the day when my son was singing these songs, I read the book Crystalline Children. And I'm in his room for some reason reading this book to myself, and I feel this orb come into my space. And it was not like a ghost. It was not like it was very clearly a living consciousness that entered my room, and I bugged out and I closed the book and I was like, I'm not, like I wasn't intending to, like, as much as I was kind of inviting that, I didn't necessarily expect it to be there, right? And then you just feel crazy and insane. So, but I used to work with people in vegetative states, and I could very clearly see when they were actually here and when they were gone. And that when they were gone, they'd be so like, oh, it's so interesting, man. You could see, especially over this one, I wrote it in Imperfectly Sane, but she had the most magnificent knack of complete exit and complete entrance. I mean, I don't know what she was doing out there, man, but she was a beautiful being in a real limited body. I will never forget her. Wow, I'm gonna cry. Anyway, I hear her name in the cosmos. I used to always call her name. But Sai says to me right after Haven says this, he said, Mommy, I remember so many people. There's so many people in heaven. And Haven goes, oh yeah, I remember when I was in heaven with Miles. And I was like, I said, what do you mean? She's like, I told you the second we got Miles, I remember playing with him in heaven. And I was like, yeah, but I thought you were just like saying that just because like you were excited that we got a puppy. She's like, no, Mommy, I was in a field with Miles and I was playing with him in heaven. And now we're doing it here. So these conversations are not something I put into my kids' head. These conversations are things that my kids bring to my memory bank of what I've always known to be true. And if I push it off and be like, oh, that's like, I don't know why any parent would not believe what the experience of their child is saying, right? Like, and it is scary, right? Because yes, my daughter has apparently, like, she seems to sometimes be open to physical assault, like I have been. I want to control that. And I want her to be able to control it, right? Like, it's very out of control. Like, dude, if you, like, you have to contain this because you're either going to be locked up in a mental institution or this, whatever is here is going to control you in a way that is not going to be safe for you. So I know that it's frustrating and it feels like out of control, because if you do believe it, then all of a sudden you're like, shit, I can't control for that thing that I'm like experiencing right now, or my kid's experiencing. But whether you believe it or not, your kid is having an experience of knowing it. And if you talk them out of that experience, you are talking them out of their reality that is actually grounded in this reality. It's not like, oh, they're making it up in their head. No, especially if they're children. They're still in a hypnagogic space. They still have access in ways that we do not to that frequency. You can believe your children. And the weird thing is like, I'm listening to Kai Dickens' thing and I love it so much, but also it's like, I have to laugh. Like, guys, why does this even have to be a podcast? Why can't, like, and I love it. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is like, I can't believe that like there's still people out there that think that only what we see is real. Most, I would say 99.99% of what is real we do not see. But people like my daughter experience in ways that you can't. And that's why I love that thing saying, Stacy listens. Because I used to think I was a voice for the voiceless in narcissistic abuse. And I am in that way, right? But when my daughter was diagnosed, I was like, wait, maybe I'm a voice for the voiceless, not in the hell in the house I grew up in, right? But also in the frequency in which my son came to the planet, my oldest, and said, my angels are teaching me these songs at night, mommy. Maybe I'm a voice also, which blew my fucking mind, given that I've been living in the density, trying to pull all of my people out of that density to go, oh wait, maybe I'm also a voice for something much higher than those living in the gutter of being narcissistically abused and gaslit and talked out of themselves in their experience 100% of the time. Maybe I'm a voice to also help my daughter experience her experience in a way that she doesn't have to deny herself or be denied to experience her reality. So there's that. Listen to the Kai Dickens podcast. If you're a person who doesn't believe a word that just came out of my mouth, well, one, you probably still wouldn't be listening, but listen to the telepathy tapes. And thank you, Laura, for even turning me on to it. That is, it's very, very cool. It's very aligned with everything I hope and think that I have been trying to send you guys all these years. So telepathy is happening whether you want to believe it or not, and it's happening in those little moments. Like, it's not huge things like, oh my god, my kid told me I had cancer or something, and that's the only time it happens. No, it's like, okay, my dog was very uncomfortable and he let us know, and if I didn't heed that information, I'd still be in a rut trying to figure out what was going on with my dog when it was very clear he gave me the evidence through my daughter. So these are everyday occurrences that if you pay attention, my love, they will guide your life. And if you believe them, truly believe them, they will know that you believe them, they will believe in you, and they will continue to show up for you and give you the messages that you need to hear. But if you don't believe them, why would the access continue to be given to you to even have those messages in the first place? Because you can, I think, turn that off. And that's a sad, it is a blessing and a curse, but it's a sad reality to have to turn it off only because you don't know how to contain it. And if you have a child that's asking for a container, it is your responsibility to be it and explore in that container with them instead of pulling them out of their container and telling them it's not real and it's not happening. Heed the messages that come to you and that come to them. Bye, guys.